Okay, let's just jump right into this because it is a big one. Imagine a world where the United States, for the very first time, isn't the one dishing out sanctions, but is actually on the receiving end, and not from its enemies, but from its closest friends. Well, according to the source material we're looking at today, that's not a hypothetical. It just happened.
Yup, you heard that right. The very nations that have stood shoulder to shoulder with America through thick and thin for almost a century have just turned one of their most powerful economic weapons against the sitting American president and his inner circle. It's just unprecedented.
All right, so let's really break this down and unpack what this actually means. Who's involved and what exactly are they saying? So when you look at the details here, the thing that jumps out right away is just how coordinated this is. In that first column, you've got the European Union, the UK, Canada, and Australia, all moving as one. And the targets in the middle, they're not vague. We're talking about Donald Trump himself, 17 key officials, and more than 40 companies tied to them. But it's that last column, the why, that is just stunning. This isn't some trade dispute. It's a direct accusation of, and I'm quoting, documented corruption and the systematic undermining of democratic institutions. So what's the real-world impact here? Well, it's a full-on economic blitz. Any bank accounts, any properties, any investments the targets have in these allied countries, frozen. They're also banned from traveling to a massive part of the Western world. And here's the big one. Banks in these allied nations are now forbidden from doing any business with them. That could literally cripple their ability to move money anywhere in the world. Think about this for a second. For 250 years, America has been the one that puts sanctions on other countries, not the other way around. The source material really hammers this home. The psychological shock of this role reversal is impossible to overstate. It's a complete flip of the global power script. So you have to be asking, how on earth did we get here? An action this extreme, this drastic, it doesn't just happen overnight. The source details a long, slow-burning breakdown in the relationship that finally hit its tipping point. This timeline here, it really lays out a clear pattern of things getting worse and worse. It started with questioning core alliances, like NATO. Then it moved to public spats, like that G7 summit fiasco. That's the big meeting of the world's most powerful economies. Then it got more serious, with these allegations of financial corruption. But according to the source, the final straw, the thing that made them pull the trigger, was a direct threat to their own national security. And this is the part you really need to understand. The source claims the Allies felt like their backs were against the wall. They'd hoped that American institutions, Congress, the courts, would step in and handle the situation. But when that didn't happen, and then they got this intelligence suggesting their own secrets were at risk, well, they decided they couldn't wait any longer. They had to act to protect themselves. So this bombshell drops at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, and it sends immediate shockwaves through the entire global system. Let's look at the chaos, the financial panic, and the fiery political blowback. And the markets? They just panicked. Instantly. You can see it right here on this chart. S&P futures just dropped like a rock, down 4%. That signals deep, deep uncertainty. So what do investors do? They run for safety, right? Gold prices spiked. The bond market went haywire. It's a textbook picture of pure economic shock. And the response from the president? Immediate, explosive. Within just minutes, he reportedly posts on Truth Social, calling the sanctions, quote, an act of war, and labeling the allied leaders globalist traitors. What followed was just a total mess. The president threatened to pull all U.S. troops out of Europe. But as the markets kept tanking, his own officials apparently started scrambling to walk that threat back. This back and forth just poured gasoline on the fire, creating even more confusion and absolutely shredding confidence in U.S. leadership on the world stage. So now America is stuck in what the source calls an impossible position. This isn't just a diplomatic tiff that'll blow over. We're talking about a fundamental fracture with potentially devastating consequences down the road. And just look at this dilemma they're facing. They've basically got two options, and both are terrible. On one hand, they can escalate, slap counter-sanctions on their own allies, maybe even pull out of NATO. The risk there? Total global isolation and a massive win for Russia and China. On the other hand, they can de-escalate, maybe cooperate, but that risks looking incredibly weak at home, which would infuriate the president's base. There are just no good moves on the board here. And the potential long-term damage is across the board. Economically, you can see a hit to GDP and maybe even speed up the move away from the US dollar as the world's currency. Security-wise, core pillars like NATO and the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, that's the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, could crumble. And politically, it puts an entire political party in a terrible spot. Do they defend a sanctioned leader or do they break from him?
This quote from Professor Lawrence Tribe really hits the nail on the head. He's pointing out that America's own allies are using the exact same tools against the American president that they would normally use on, say, the leader of a hostile authoritarian country. And this one from Richard Haas, wow. It just lays out the massive historical stakes. He's calling it a world historical turning point. He's basically saying the whole game board we've all been playing on since World War II, the one America built, is shattering. And it's shattering because the one thing holding it together, trust, is gone. So this entire episode leaves us with a huge and honestly a kind of scary question. For decades, the Western alliance was built on shared values and mutual trust. But when a country's own allies formally declare its leader a threat to those very values, what's left? What holds it all together?